So what we're talking about this morning is multi-grind versus like a typical standard grind, whether that be a Scandinavian grind or a saber grind or flat grind. And I want to talk about the benefits of the multi-grind and why you might want to choose that type of knife over something else that's more typical. To help me out, I brought 3 different knives. Most importantly, because it's kind of been promised and fresh on the channel, we have the Snake Eater knife by Woodsteel Knives and Junkyard Fox. This is a combination of Scandi grind here in the front. I can't see because it's blurry, but a Scandi grind here and a flat grind here, so it kind of transitions to that, and I'll get some close-ups and show you what that looks like. I have done some food prep with this already, cutting up. We call it food prep, but it's really just like, cutting up food. Done some cooking, cut up some chicken just to test the flat grind area. But yeah, so there's that one. Another multi-grind knife that I brought to show different style is this one right here. This is a William Collins Blackbird, Woodsman Blackbird. This has a Scandi grind to a saber grind transition here. A little bit beefier, a little bit bigger. Still a very nice, fine working tool, but not nearly as thin as the Snake Eater. And then, final one that I brought, just because it's so typical, is the Kansbol. This is, again, a Scandi to what may be a kind of a flat grind. But yeah, we've got those 3, 2 high-end, 1 budget option, typical multi-grind style knives. And the sun is just starting to peek over the clouds and hit the trees, and it's gorgeous out here. I love coming out near dawn because no one else is out here. It's cold, it's quiet. You feel like it's just you and the birds. Okay, let's get into it. So one of the main reasons you might decide to get a multi-grind knife over something like a typical grind is for versatility's sake. The benefit of each grind is something that we've discussed in multiple different episodes of Blade Talk Tuesdays on this channel, as well as just out in the field. Different grinds just perform better at specific tasks. I don't care what people believe. There are specific grinds for specific tasks in that, it's just designed to work better that way. If you're looking at a convex grind, for instance, that's a tougher edge. It's going to be great for working through difficult material. It's going to slice well, but it's also going to have a tough edge for longevity. That's why axes use it. That's why you don't see a lot of axes in a Scandi grind, because the edge wouldn't perform as well. It would chip. It would be weaker. Whereas a Scandinavian grind, great for woodworking. That's really what it's designed for. It's just really good for getting through wood because it's one single bevel. You don't have to work with multiple bevels. But it's not going to be as good as slicing through meat or food or, kitchen work. So, say what you will. Different grinds have different purposes, and that's where the multi-grind comes into play. You have one portion of the knife dedicated to one task and a different portion of the knife dedicated to a separate task. So you're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone, so to speak. So let's say hypothetically you've decided to strap on your hip the Scout Platoon by BHK, a knife that we've tested and used a couple times on this channel. That's all saber grind. Look at that. If it'll focus for me. Look at that. Big old saber grind. Now, one thing I've personally experienced while working with this one is that it's not the best at carving wood. So, you being a woodworker and a camper, let's say you go camping, you want this because of the size, because it's going to be good for cutting up food, but you need something for woodworking. Well, then you might wind up having to carry something like this in addition to it. The Mora High Q. This is a Scandinavian grind. It's nice and light. It's perfect for bushcrafting. Again, being a Scandi, not going to be the best for other things. Hypothetically, you're going to carry 2 knives. Now, that's the situation where a multi-grind could really come into play. You're going to carry the Black Feather knife by William Collins because you've got the benefits of the saber grind up front, but also the benefits of the Scandi grind back towards the handle where most of your leverage point is going to be. Get it? Does that make sense? Let's use another example. Let's say you consider yourself a bushcrafter first. So you're carrying the LT Wright Genesis knife, classic bushcraft knife, Scandinavian grind, A2 steel. I mean, you just use this thing for any woodworking survival tasks and it performs fantastic for you. But check that out. There is nothing but Scandi on that knife. And you find yourself in a situation where you're cutting up your veggies, making a stir fry over a campfire, and you're like, man, do I want to really mess up my perfect Scandi edge cutting up food? So you find yourself grabbing a secondary knife, and you might grab something like this. This is a Junior Edgewood by Woodsteel Knives, and I've shown this one before in our EDC video. AEBL saber grind, high saber grind, so it would slice up your veggies perfectly instead. You're carrying two knives where you could be carrying a multi-grind like the Snake Eater. Get the benefit of that Scandi bushcraft size with the Scandi grind towards the front here, transitioning to the flat grind, which would be perfect for cutting up food like I've shown already in this video. Now, obviously we're going to get to use, and that's coming up real soon. Let's say that you're struggling with the idea that both these knives I've shown are very expensive. You know, both of them are well over $200, and you're like, man, I want the benefit of multi-grind, but I don't want to spend $200. Get the Kansbol. Multi-grind, benefits of the multi-grind, you've got the Scandi to a flat, but you don't have to spend $200. You can get it for $30, $40. You know, under $50, you can pick up this knife on Amazon. I'll have an affiliate link down below that you can purchase it and support the channel. And again, benefit of a multi-grind is the versatility of tasks. You do your woodworking, you can do your camp tasks for bushcraft, but then transition to your camp tasks for cooking, skinning, gutting, whatever you do with your knife apart from cutting wood like I usually do. So that's the discussion, that's the point. Now let's actually use them.
Well, we are back with some more voiceover, so hopefully that doesn't irritate anybody. Now, as you can probably tell, I like to start out with feather sticking. And you can see with this particular saber grind knife, I'm getting some fine curls. If you have skill, you should be able to do this no matter what the knife edge type is. But the benefit here is that when we switch over to the multi-grind, I felt like I had a little bit more control on that edge because of the Scandi portion. Now, many of you will argue with me, including Alan from Papa Bear Knives, that saber, full flat, those are the ideal feathering edges, or bevels. Just depends on your skill and your style. I'm just comfortable with the Scandi because I've used it for so many years. It always surprises me at how much control I have over the edge of the William Collins Master Woodsman Blackbird. Something about it, even though it is larger than I normally like to use, I just feel like I have so much good control over it. Maybe it's the weight, maybe it's the balance, but yeah, every time I use it, I'm impressed by this knife. Now we're going to be switching over to the Snake Eater knife by Woodsteel Knives and Junkyard Fox. This is a knife that I've been wanting to try out and test and work with for pretty much ever since James announced it years ago. And I finally have one in my hands, and the more and more I test it, the more and more I fall in love with it. The design, the feel, the shape, everything about it just is well designed and really thought out. And the quality of the craftsmanship is top notch as well. But you can see that small portion of Scandi does really well with the feathering, but you know, honestly, you could even move up towards the edge and you'd be fine feathering with this. That flat grind is going to do great. I don't know why we have this impression that we need to feather with Scandi grinds, but I don't know. It's just habitually presented in these YouTube videos, I guess. It's probably an unfair comparison between the Snake Eater and the Junior Edgewood because the size is so different. But, you know, again, just trying to get a feel for the edge. That high saber grind is different than the Scandi grind. There's just no denying it. It feels different when you're working with it. So moving on to a different type of knife skill, this is what we might call pressure cuts, or maybe not pressure cuts, but heavy slices through the material. This is really gives you an idea of how much you can dig into the material using the edge. In the case of the Scout, or the Scout Platoon here, you can get in deep because it's a big knife, but because of the saber edge, it doesn't feel like you can dig into the wood quite as much. It doesn't hog through the wood as much as I was expecting it to for the size of the knife. And when we move on to the William Collins Blackbird, that Scandi edge just really pressures through the wood. Again, that Scandi edge is just designed to plane through wood with no trouble whatsoever, and the multi-grind on this Blackbird woodsman shines. Where I notice most of the difference is when I start doing these notch carvings with the Snake Eater and switching over to the Junior Edgewood, which I'll do in just a second here. Because of that Scandi edge being just highly tuned to really focus in on carving wood, I'm able to just dig through the material really nicely. I'm able to control the edge and make sure that I have a nice clean notch that goes nice and deep without much trouble at all, versus the Junior Edgewood, which, not a bad carver, it's just a different type of grind. You know, that high saber grind just did not perform quite as well with heavy carving like the Scandi portion on the Snake Eater. Kind of expected, actually.
One thing I really want to clarify, though, you know, coming from like a background of primarily bushcraft, is yes, like multi-grinds, fantastic, but there is a downside. When I'm truly like carving and really focused in on doing a lot of work, this portion of the Scandinavian blade right here at the very tip is one of the most useful portions, especially when carving. So not having access to the Scandinavian grind from the ricasso to the tip does inhibit certain carving. Like I found, yes, notching, I was able to get deeper with the Scandinavian portion of the Snake Eater than I was with the Junior Edgewood with the saber grind, but without the Scandinavian tip, it was a little bit different trying to clean up that spot right there, whereas I would have taken a Scandinavian and done something like this, which you can totally do with a flat grind. I'm not saying you can't do it with a flat grind, but if we're talking usefulness of the grinds, the Scandinavian will always perform better at those very specific carving tasks. That's why you see most carving knives are a Scandinavian. Just a thought as we conclude. I should have brought some food to chop up, but what I'll do is I'll roll in some footage from way back when I started doing this thing called Knife Olympics, of me trying to cut up food with Scandinavian grinds, and they just never quite perform as well. I don't care what you say. I know it's possible. You can totally do things with their Scandi grind, but especially once they're 1/8 inch, they struggle at that chopping up food. So definitely keep that in mind. If you're going to do a lot of food work, you might err on the side of using a saber grind or a flat grind, maybe a convex. So in any case, I'm going to end this episode as early as it is. There are already people all over the place walking around, and I get kind of bashful on camera. So we're going to end it here. Hopefully this was a helpful video. Food for thought, really. I want to hear your impression on on the multi-grind versus standard grinds. What do you carry? Do you like a multi-grind? Do you hate a multi-grind? And let me know in the comments section below. As always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care. Or just do yourself a favor and get the Mora. Nothing lasers through like the Haikyuu. It's just so good. Right? Love this knife. It's super dangerous doing this.